Look, we all will have taken different aspects from that. I think one of the things we take from it is the number of angles that each session could go, the number of different areas that you could cover inside the mind of a jockey. And I suppose knowing that we have, and Dara referred to it earlier, we have the posters coming up. I think Katie, Georgia, Claire and Kelly will all be leaning on various aspects of being inside the mind of a jockey, if you like. And at the themed table, Ciara will be looking deeper into mental health as well. So that's the start of it, and you could feel the conversation. We could have skipped the other sessions and gone in all sorts of different directions. Extra points to Michael, obviously, for getting his presentation in time and for mentioning the Irish soccer team. That's a real positive. For Tom, who said he's roughly 168 winners behind his dad. I think we know that his dad references that more than once. You're never roughly 168, you're roughly 175. I think if this was the Nick Luck podcast, they always look for sort of something to lead with so that you're drawn into it. And to me, the line that you would have taken from that, it's the simplicity of it, but the strategic loitering. That's really it. To me, that's what it is. It's you're there when they need them, and that's just me. Like all of you, I have no skill set in this any more than Michael says he didn't, but I really don't. But the strategic loitering to me was what I took away from that. If you're there when they need you, there's a chance. A bit like the horse. We're pretty close to time, but keen to keep on time. So we're going to move on. We've one presentation now before our morning break, and that is with Dr. Susanna Holt on entrapment protocols. Susanna has come over from the UK. Susanna is a specialist hand and trauma surgeon trained in plastic surgery. She has worked from point to points to the race courses. She's worked at motorsports, many equestrian events from the Pony Club right through to the Olympics, and she's had an interest in jockey safety and immediate racecourse care. This is a very This presentation is clearly linked, obviously, to our session outside, looking at entrapment protocols, and the simulation we'll do outside at 2 o'clock. So this will almost prep us for that. So can you please welcome Dr. Susanna Holt.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for the opportunity to come and present this little piece of work that we've done in the West Country, following on from an incident which I'm going to go through. Hopefully it will be of use and applicable essentially worldwide. So thank you for the introduction. I'm now going to introduce this talk. The jockey trapped under a horse is an unusual scenario, but it is a high pressure and a high risk situation. We've had several recent incidents on UK jumps racecourses, and following sort of interrogation of those, that's led to much better understanding of these incidents and the introduction of racecourse protocols for their management. So if I can take you to Exeter, this was February last year. It's a 3-mile 2 steeplechase. The going is heavy, and we're at the third last fence. All was going well. I was in the doctor's car at the head of the convoy, and then this happened. So horse falls.
To take the lead, and now it's asked me early on the...
And horse is not getting up. Horse is winded, jockey is trapped under the horse. So I was first out of the car, and the jockey was trapped. His head and torso, as you could see from the video, was between the horse's legs, and he was being quite vocal about the need for him to be extricated. As I was first out, I went to the horse's head with the aim of controlling the horse, stopping it getting up. And at that point, two pulled-up jockeys dismounted and came over. The jockey was yelling for us to get the horse off him. And the two dismounted jockeys and one ground staff, with me on the horse's head, very rapidly rolled the horse off the jockey. Horse and jockey got up straight away. So big sense of relief at that point. Okay, so we then subsequently analysed this process in some detail. And of note, the jockey was obviously conscious and breathing, and several factors led to an intuitive response in this situation. It was not a rehearsed manoeuvre, and there was no obvious team leader. The manoeuvre was made prior to vet and vet team with horse handler involvement, and there was potential high risk of injury to the rescuers. However, there were some positives. At speed, the horse was off the jockey in less than 2 minutes, and there was no injury to either jockey nor to those involved in the extrication. It was also very valuable to look at the human factors involved in this, and I think really very important to this was there had been a recent, i.e. days prior, point-to-point jockey fatality, and the jockeys racing that day had spent time in the parade ring prior to racing that day for a 2-minute silence. So I think that was all in everybody's heads on the racecourse that day. The verbal environment that we had during this extrication from the jockeys was difficult, and I think what I've just mentioned about the previous issue earlier, so a week prior, would be very, very impactful on that. So I think that ties in with the challenges that jockeys have in undertaking their daily work. We had correct immediate actions, but there was no pause to allow an on-scene vet and horse handler involvement in the scene. And also, I felt there's a lack of collective knowledge of who's who on scene, how their identification, what they have with them, and roles in such an event made it very much more difficult to manage that. So we have looked at the needs of the various aspects of the teams who would be immediately on scene for this. And for the ground staff team, we felt that a joint understanding of processes and who's in the team is important. They will need an understanding of the vet and medical team needs in managing extrication of a track jockey, and also good knowledge and training in horse handling techniques. They need access to and familiarity with equipment that would be involved, and they need to be allowed to develop team leadership for reasons that you will see upcoming. So from the medical team's point of view, we need to preserve life. We need to avoid further injury to the jockey, ourselves, and any others involved in the process. We have a responsibility to undertake the extrication as soon as possible and also as safely as possible. We're often seen as team leaders. However, we can't, as the doctors or the medical team, be part of the incident control. We don't have the bandwidth. Our focus will be on the jockey. The same applies to the vets. Additionally, we need to prepare for the jockey treatment to be once extricated, so we need to be setting up for treatment, and we need to focus on the human casualty management and not the scene management in this situation. So the vet team have similar needs. They need to look after the safety of themselves and of the team. They need to be able to have communication with the doctors and the ground crew. They need to understand the risk to the jockey, and that is for us to communicate, and also for the urgency of the extrication. They need to be part of a competent drilled team with minimal horse handling. They need to have around them the screens placed well to create a cordon to allow management of the scene without additional input and away from public gaze. That creates a much more controlled, quiet environment. And the vets need to be able to concentrate on their role. So we've essentially divided those into silos, but with good communication with. So understanding those needs, we then developed a protocol. So we had a small working group of clerk of the course who was involved on the day, RMOs and racecourse veterinary surgeons. It was a very collaborative approach, went through several iterations, and the principles have evolved from the barter training and work which was initiated by fire service who have created an extensive training program for rescuing large animals. We also looked at the JESIP principles, which is the Joint Emergency Services interoperability protocols about collaborative working under pressure at scenes such as these. So we then refined these for the immediate actions in potentially life-threatening, highly risky situations on the racecourse, but with simple equipment. The barter training requires a lot of equipment and a lot of people, i.e. a fire crew of 8 people with significant PPE. We're working in a different environment, so the equipment has been modified and simplified for that. So fundamental to this was the principles of safe working. So having people in the right place and creating the right environment. And a larger picture from this is the understanding of the danger zones working around a horse that's on the ground. So you can see there you've got a safer working environment, and appropriately entitled as safer working environment, along the dorsal side of the horse. The head is felt to be a hazard area. It can move, and that needs to be controlled. And then we have in the red zone a high hazard area, which involves front legs, back legs, and anywhere in between in a large arc around those. And that is fundamental to the training that has been undertaken. So we created action cards for each of the 3 groups that are likely to be involved in an entrapment. And all of those are headed by meet with the instant controller 20 minutes before the first race in the pre-parade ring. And we're now doing this for every race meeting, so we know who's who and what they've got with them. The vets have prepared, pre-filled syringes to undertake rapid sedation, so they have those with them. And everybody now is wearing a helmet during racing, which helps with identification and also with helping to protect ourselves should we have to get involved in a quick rescue. So the principle of co-location of the vet, the doctor and the instant controller should be pretty immediate. The risks of the rescue, the severity of the jockey's injuries, the rate of the extrication required, the likely horse injuries and the plan for the extrication are rapidly discussed and voiced. The vet would then go on to sedate and or anaesthetise the horse to allow extrication of the jockey in an ideal circumstance. So from the racecourse medical officer's point of view, again, the meeting and the enunciation of the issues. So our first role will be to gain verbal contact with the jockey. Are you okay? We're here to help. We'll get you out as soon as possible. Also, to say, keep calm, keep your head down, and we will look after you and get you out ASAP. We would also liaise with the paramedic team, get them to prepare a kit dump in the safe area where we have planned to extricate the jockey to. And then once the horse is moved, we would then extricate the jockey. Key to this has been the development of the instant controller role. As mentioned, the vets are doing the vet aspect of the extrication and the medical team concentrating on the jockey. However, the wider scene needs to be managed by the instant controller, and we have felt that that is best done by the head groundsman. It's important to have a training that encompasses more than one person so that people can drop in and out of this role, but that has been fundamental too. And roles of the instant controller will be assuming command of the whole situation, keeping people out of the danger zone, directing the erection of the screens and managing those, controlling access to the inner cordon, and providing ongoing feedback to the clerk of the course as to whether or not the next race needs to be delayed, or indeed whether or not there needs to be a race stop put in during this race. We need to ensure that everybody remains calm, no shouting, and a quiet environment while the horse is being sedated is really, really important. So a risk matrix has been produced, essentially for during that initial communication and planning moment, whether or not the jockey is in a life-threatening situation, i.e. if we're very simplistic about it, are they able to communicate with us or not? And if they are not able to communicate with us, we would say that this is an out-now scenario. If the jockey is communicating with us, then we can go through things in a little bit more of a controlled and as safe as possible way. But if it's an out-now, there is an understanding that individuals will potentially take on slightly more risky manoeuvres in order to extricate that jockey on an out-now basis. Perfect. We've also put together information for jockeys as well. Understanding, having been part of this incident, the impact that it will have on the jockeys and how frightening it must be to be stuck in between horses' legs or wherever. It's been helpful to produce information for the jockeys, and certainly we would want to promote that we are there to help them and give them the confidence that we are trained and working very much as a team in as safe as possible way to get them out as soon as we possibly can. So a lot of training's been undertaken. Life-size horse mannequins have been purchased, which have been really, really valuable for making this possible. And certainly annual training has been undertaken on all the West Country racecourses with multiple scenarios. We can just run through this very quick scenario here. So this is an extrication during a training program. So you can see control of the horse's head is gained with a temporary head collar and then downward pressure. Vet then comes in and administers sedation. Meanwhile, the medical team are talking to the jockey, reassuring them and explaining what's happening. Ground staff then use strops with the aim of rolling the horse off the jockey. And you'll see here that the horse is not, because it's plastic, there is some dragging and it's a little bit more tricky. And then we spot the deliberate mistake here. Ever helpful colleague comes to do that. That is a no-no, but it illustrates the point that we all want to get in and help. Jockey's then removed to a safe location where kit would have been dumped and treatment, assessment and treatment can be made while the team continues with their assessment of the horse. This is a video of a live horse being rolled. The aim of this video is to show you that one person on the head plus 3 people plus 1 rope can allow for a rapid roll manoeuvre of a horse. So it doesn't require heavy lifting equipment, it doesn't require a huge amount of people. Everybody's in the safe zone, they're aware of what's going to happen, and the horse will try to get up, so you need to be aware of that. Everybody's away, and there's adequate space behind the screens there also. So following the introduction of the protocol, we've had a couple of further incidents. This one was in Wales relatively recently at the home straight towards the end of a race. Going was soft, and the horse was across the jockey's pelvis and thighs. So a significant proportion of the jockey's body was underneath the horse. The jockey's legs were out the other side of the horse's back. So there was some discussion about how the extrication was going to be undertaken. The jockey was reporting no pain and no injury at this point and was fantastic, head down, kept very calm. So there was very good communication calling the entrapment, and that's really, really helpful. If there's an awareness on the radio network that there is a trapped jockey, then everybody definitely tunes in and is aware of what needs to be done. There was a good response. Staff got the screens up quickly with a good internal space, rapid head control, and the horse was anaesthetised. Not so good. Several people did arrive. I think maybe a trainer or connections, with many people shouting what they felt should be done. There was a call for quiet and a team approach developed. There was some discussion about how best to remove horse from the jockey, but a decision was made. Horse was removed. The jockey was then assessed in the JRM and went on to win the next but one race. So quite impressive. I've also had a look at track jockey incidents on the flat. Very unusual in running, but the stalls have been the scene of many a trapped horse and potentially a trapped jockey with horse combination. couple of videos to really highlight the challenges around essentially 500-kilo unexploded bombs full of adrenaline in the stalls. And they've been really highlighting the challenges. The jockey did flip out the back there, but the number of people around the horse and in a very high-risk situation is significant. Horse is still trapped and is then released forward. So you can just imagine the scenario of somebody, either ground staff or stalls handlers or jockey being trapped in that situation, and then how to deal with that would be a really challenging situation. This one as well, it sort of re-emphasises the probably exploding bomb situation of multiple horses in stalls. Once they start to go, they start to go. So we've got jockeys popping out, stalls handlers popping out, and also a horse which is facing the wrong way. So really, really, really challenging environment to be working in for anybody involved. And this was more recently at the Curragh. Start of the race, all looks okay.
They're off. Dream Today has...
But one horse hasn't left the stalls. And if we look at that from the head on...
Just get a bit congested. Keep an eye on stall 1. Dream Today, Ruby.
Yeah.
Ooh, anticipated it, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, he is lucky. He's so lucky the horse stayed where he did. Oh, give the horse a pat.
And you can see very swift actions of the stalls handlers. So foot caught in stirrup. Luckily, jockey managed to extricate himself, and even more luckily, that horse stayed where he was and definitely did deserve a pat. So thinking about the protocol that we put together for track jockey and flat racing, if during the race the protocol and actions would be similar, if in the stalls it is an extremely high-risk situation, the horse is physically trapped in a tight space and full of adrenaline. And there are many other horses and also humans, jockeys, stall handlers, also, in inverted commas, trapped in adjacent stalls. The jockeys on the whole are able to pop off onto the side rails, and the horses usually manage to scramble out under the stalls. However, if a jockey was trapped in the stalls and the situation not resolving, extreme care needs to be taken, and to avoid further injuries and to avoid multiple people going in to try and help out. Well worth having planned actions, an incident controller designated, and also the vet and medical team roles clarified. We've seen there that a manual forward release of adjacent and or all the remaining runners would be very appropriate, just to walk them out forwards, and you'd then need to sedate, anaesthetise and extricate, with the option of moving the stalls off the trapped jockey-horse combination. So in summary, trap jockey incidents are not that unusual in jumps racing. I think we've had 4 or 5 in the last 2 years in the UK. Stalls incidents in flat racing, entrapment is unusual. There's usually self-extrication of both jockey and horse, but similar principles should apply. It is an extremely high-risk situation. We feel that development of protocol allows shared understanding, team training, and pre-race briefings. And I do hope that knowledge amongst the jockeys that there is this training and shared understanding of how best to help them in these tricky situations is becoming known. We also review incidents regularly and have ongoing learning from any trap jockey incidents. And I'd just like to acknowledge the following who've had significant roles in creating the protocol and disseminating the work. It's been a small team that has worked hard to hopefully create something that is of positive benefit to jockeys, and those involved in any incidents going forward. Thank you very much.
We all know we've all raced enough to see that those are very, very rare instances, but they are real, and when they happen, everybody needs to be equipped for them. I know in Ireland and the UK, obviously, I'm sure around the world, the support of all the people around the incident, let it be fence stewards or marshals or whoever is close to watch for every possible assistance, whether it's ambulances making their way in or off the track and festivals, or people, as Susanna has outlined, getting to a horse's head. Those little differences make big differences.